Hello and welcome to another Six Sages Gaming set review. Today we're going to be talking about water and how awesome they are, and I hope you guys are really going to see what they're all about. So up first we have Ash. Now I just have to say, if I have to hear the Dat Ash comment one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. Yes, the artwork is beautiful, it's a great card, but let's talk about what makes this card so great. So it's a 3-drop 7k, and first off you have to understand, for water, that's great. Not often do we see water have this great power to cost ratio, so already pretty excited about it. When Ash is chosen by a summoner ability your opponent controls, gains plus 3,000 power to end a turn, so it can't be Brynhildred or the Lightning Brynhildred, which name is escaping me now. An interesting note that we did find out is that if they EX burst a Brynhildred, per the official starter rules, it doesn't technically start a stack, so her ability won't actually save her from an EX burst. That said, she's still fairly hard to remove from damage-based effects, so that's not a bad spot to be in. For 2 water, you can activate her, which means if we're playing this maybe mono water deck, let's use for example, it's going to be a 3-drop 8k because we're going to use Waka, and you can just have this surprise blocker out of nowhere. And again, that's not something water normally has, so it's a very welcomed addition. And then lastly, it also has an S effect. So again, you guys know how much I love S effects, so that automatically raises this up on my playability level. Ash gains plus 2,000 power and first strike until end of turn. So not only can she be this very powerful blocker, she can then also have a very strong offensive attack by using that effect by saying they think they're going to block with a 9k and be fine. Not only are you matching their power level, but you're going to be able to give first strike and survive combat. So I love this card. It is absolutely going in every water deck that I'm going to be playing. And then kudos if you want to play water fire, there's just even so much more that does it. But this is absolutely a card that I want to be playing in a water-based deck. And you guys will see that I love all the cards that Water got in this set because honestly it was a little lacking with the last set in terms of what they could really do outside of, Warrior Light having the standard unit deck. But this set really helps Water get this new identity and be able to expand out into other element combinations. So I am super excited for that. I can't wait to talk more about it. But that's all I have for Ash right now. Absolutely going to be a playable card. I love it. So up next we have Agrius. And someone has to find this image for me because I swear when this was originally spoiled, it was a 2-drop 3k, which ain't shit if we're being honest. But a 2-drop 5k is respectable, so I'm going to eventually try to find that image because I swear I wrote off this card very early on, and maybe it was an incorrect leak, what have you, but I actually really like this card now. It's an early drop for water that's a 5k, so it can still hold its own in some regards. But then Judgment Blade. Choose 1 forward of cost 3 or less an opponent controls and just break it for no cost other than an S. And we do have another copy of this card that we can discard, so we can play a 3-1 split, and we're going to be able to activate this card. And again, 3, you might not think that 3-drop kills a lot, but in water where they don't have those kind of break effects and they don't have those abilities to have such a strong answer to, even if it's a 3 cost or less. Yes, 100%. This is an absurd rare. I almost said common. This is an absurd rare that, depending on what element combination you're doing, and if you're trying to do a more control-based deck, you're going to be playing this card. It is actually insane for water. Like, I don't know where water is getting this new identity from in this set, but I love it. Absolutely love it. So yeah, for a rare, this is surprisingly good, and I can't wait to see what decks players are able to put this in. So I very much would encourage everyone to brew with this card. Up next we have Imperial Visions. If you control 4 forwards or more, it gains plus 3k power. So this is great if you want to do a Golbez Mannequin EX based death deck, because you're going to find all these 2-drops, so it just automatically becomes a 2-drop 7k, and then with X-Death it can become an 8k, so that is certainly powerful on its own. The downside is that it does heavily require for you to have that condition being met, because otherwise this is a pretty lackluster card. So maybe you just leave it in the deck as a 1-of, so you can tutor it for when you have X-Death already on field and you're going to be able to grab 4 other cards. Chances are there's going to be other 2-drops that you want to be getting that are just going to be better, but I think this will have a small place as a 1 to 2 of, and based on all of our other set reviews, again, We might not be 100% right on this. These are just our impressions of the cards. But as sets go on and we get more mannequins, I can definitely see this card seeing more play. But right now, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by it. Nazo, or at least that's, I believe, how you pronounce it. Now, this is a card that is getting a lot of grief. And I can understand that a little bit. So it's a 2-drop 5k. It is, but its power is mostly irrelevant for if we look into its effect. Cannot block forwards for winning a party, so conditional blocking is already meh. When he blocks, dull him, and then if he's dull, he cannot receive or deal any damage. This includes player damage too, so this is a card that's not attacking, which, to be fair, it's a turtle, basically. It's a if you were to cross Venom and a turtle, this is what you would get. All joking aside, that this is a card that, unless you're playing in the Archfiend deck and you're using it for Golbez, I can't imagine why you'd be playing this card. If you want a blocker that's going to do more for you and be able to block more cards, then I would go with, what's his name now? Gordon from Opus 1, because it can dull and block to prevent the damage, and that's just better in this situation. And Gordon can actually attack. So I'm a little upset by this card. And maybe there's something else that I'm missing, so please let me know in the comments if I am. But outside of the Golbez deck, for what you want to be doing in that deck, I can't really see this card doing much. Semblance of a Witch. Enters the field, choose one forward opponent controls, and freeze it. Which, why? Why freeze? Is this supposed to be a nice card? Interesting card. It's a 3-drop 7k, so at least the power is on point, and it does give a can be relevant utility to water that otherwise doesn't have it, so that can be fine. But meh. Again, if you're playing this mannequin deck already and you can make this card an AK, then by all means run it and let X-Death do its thing. But ultimately, I am a little bit sour on this. So again, freeze. It's nice to see water getting this other element. Characteristic, but again, not overly sold on it. Agrius. Yes, terrible puns again. This is a card now that I'm super excited about. If you watch our review yesterday, or our lightning review, we talked about Al Cid and how much I love the end of the battlefield cards that actually do something, and this was the other card that I was referencing. So at the level that it is, it's a 5-drop 8k, so it's a little overcosted, but in water this is where it should be. But what this card potentially does is just so much, and I just really want to focus on the two different aspects of it. So you get to play a cost except water, mind you, a water non-water forward of 3 or less for free. Now again, if you're playing maybe you're doing fire water, so you get to play land for free. You could play Squall for free. If you want to be really cheeky, you can play Zarg for free, which I have on the right there. Then you can play any forward of element except ice of cost 3 or less. So you could do this thing where you get to do you can do Gis into Zarg into another water 3-drop and chain all these things together. And what's important to note is that Gis's ability, or I'm just gonna, however you pronounce it, G's ability is going to resolve first. So you're gonna get to play it, put in Zarg, draw the 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and then resolve the other effects. So you then get to dig deeper into your deck to find another card for the other ability, and you can just swarm the field with these 3 things. The second really critical part about that is that you're drawing 2 cards and then discarding 2 cards. Water has been so great at having this filter ability that obviously not any other element's going to have. It's very unique to a water attribute at this point, but it lets us play with multiple light and dark cards if we really want to, and not have to worry about them being clogged in our hands. As you'll see in a few more cards, we have this, we have Moogle on a backup. We have all these filtering options finally that we can just discard these extra dark cards that we just don't care about. So maybe you're running Emperor, maybe you're running Sephiroths in your deck as well. Maybe you just want to be able to dig for your deck quicker and find those key cards. Maybe you have a Zemus as well. This lets you fix your hand and get rid of those cards that you might be stuck with. Now again, if you draw like double dark cards, and then you might just be stuck with having these 2 dead cards until you get to this in your hand, sure, that those situations might come up. This then would immediately let you discard those 2 dark cards and get you right back into the game. So this is just such a strong filtering card, and anytime that we have more combo based deck. So I absolutely love this as well. Now the downside is except water, so I don't know what element I'm going to pair it with. For the Yuna and Len combo, this helps you find those cards. That is so important for those decks to find that other half of the party, and that is exactly what this card does. And then keeping in mind, we're also playing Minwoo. Chances are we're going to be playing Waka as a backup, even though I love the starter version, but giving them all plus 1,000 power is just so important. We now have this 5-drop 9k that has Minwoo protection as well. Sure, absolutely love this card. Again, I just cannot stress enough how amazing this card is and the different options that it does. And again, as we go on, as more cards come out, this is only going to get stronger. The draw and discard is only going to become more relevant. And then never mind that it has a whole separate other ability on it. It doesn't receive any damage from abilities other than special abilities. So we can't die to the ping damage. We can't die to... I'm blanking out on the backup Fusoya. There we go. The light backup. We don't die to Lulu unless it's Thundaga, so we can't be 2 for 1 in that case, or 1 for 2. I guess it would be in our favor if they had combined 2 cards, but you get the idea. So he has this built-in protection as well that just makes him that little extra more frustrating to deal with than what he already is. So I believe I've gushed about this card enough, and I think that you would be silly not to be playing this card, or at least using it in a few different brews, because what it allows you to do is absolutely amazing. So again, the downside is that it's not as good. Obviously, we don't want to be playing this in, say, mono water, but it lets us branch out water into these other element combinations that we might have not previously had because we didn't have a good way to draw into other pieces. So love this card. Make it a 9k with Minwoo, and you will absolutely love it as well. Now, talking about a card that is not as good, but again, they decided to just force this mechanic in this set. Quistis enters the field, play 1 water forward. So the small note here is that at least it is on element, so this is more for those mono element decks. That's cool too. You get to play 3 or less from your hand onto the field, and then forwards of cost 2 or less, you control game plus 1,000. So the interesting thing to hear, again, play this in a mono water deck. You're going to play Waka, so it's a 5-drop 8k. Okay. You get to either play Yuna or Len for free, and then you can also give cards like Mime plus 1,000 power, which might not always be the most relevant thing, I understand, but there's going to be other 2-drops that you're going to want to be playing that can get buffed. And again, if you're playing maybe a standard unit deck, you can do that option as well, and this is just another buff for all those forwards. So this is kind of a card that wants to be, it's torn between, based on the card pool right now, it's torn between being this mono water deck and being in this standard unit based deck, because I just don't think that there's enough standard units yet in mono water unless you went heavy night theme. I guess you could. Try that. Let me know how it is, because we do get a very important summon, which I think will help that deck be relevant. So now that I think about it, might not be too bad, but we will cover that in a second. So an interesting rare. I'm not sure it's going to find it home, but it could be very strong as we get a few more sets, and mono water is maybe more of a thing. Up next, we have Summoner. Cast 1 summon of cost 2 or less from your hand without paying the cost. So in theory, you're going to be saving a crystal point or discarding a card, which is certainly strong enough. What I am bummed about here is that it doesn't let us cast, say, Leviathan for free, the 3-drop version. So it's a little limited in what it can do right now. If you're playing Wind Water, for example, there's just a slew of options you have then that can be very strong, but ultimately not that exciting for what the current card pool is looking like. Now, this, I guarantee someone's going to play this card, and it's going to be fine, don't get me wrong. It's just extremely limited in what it can do. And obviously making it a 3 cost or less would have just been broken, just completely broken in half. So I do like the card. I think it's going to find a home maybe in Water Earth or Water Wind perhaps, but maybe not good enough to be going into every single water-based deck. Now that said, this is some damn good artwork, and I know it's just from Final Fantasy XIV, and I did get to play the Summoner class for a little bit, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but when I was opening the packs and seeing the foil versions of this, it really made me miss my foils. So kudos to Square Enix for at least getting some better art, and I'm very much looking forward to the custom artwork that they said we're going to be getting. I'm assuming by Opus 4, just because of how long the contracting and whatnot of ours can take. So I'm really excited for the end of the year and what that's going to look like. But let's keep moving on. Cecil, which, as you guys watched our Legend review, I'm also very excited for this card for a number of effects. Now, again, keeping in mind, I did say mono water, and that is very important here because all forwards other than Cecil gain plus 1,000 power and don't receive damage from summons or abilities. So again, another card that gives our team an anthem. Now, yes, it is all forwards. It's not just water forwards, I do understand, but it does help push those cards in that direction because remember, Yuna and Len are only or Lene, however you say her name, is only a 7k. So in theory, we could play this and play Waka to boost them to 9k attackers, which, again, if we have Minwoo, then if we get to set up this board state the way we want it to, your opponent's going to have a hell of a time trying to break that up. And of course, we're then going to have things like Leviathan, either the 1-drop or the 3-drop, back up as protection to then say, look, you just spent a lot of resources trying to win this combat trick after I've already, Bahamut blasted your 2 other guys out of the water. But I think Cecil is just a critical piece in that puzzle to make that combination work. And again, anytime that we can give all our forwards plus 1,000 power, especially to an element that is always, it's on par to be about 1,000 power behind, just with the water elements that we've seen, it automatically gets, credit in why we should be playing this in the deck. Obviously, he protects himself from summons or abilities, and then the one downside is, if possible, Cecil must block. So I was doing a lot more thinking about this one, and it can be very easy for your opponent to set up a party attack that's going to kill Cecil. Now, with that said, he is a 9k, so if you have Minwoo, maybe you have Wak already, so he's a 10k attacker. That's probably fine. Just put him on the offense, have your other characters play defense. That'll probably be fine. But again, keeping in mind, you do have the option to play both of the Leviathans. Maybe use Moogle to draw into something. You can use Scholar to bounce him if you really have to. So you could block and then bounce him back to your hand. There are a number of battle tricks that Cecil has access to already in his element, so it does make him a bit stronger. Yes, it might be annoying that we do have to run these kind of protection measures, but chances are we're going to be playing those cards as is. So I think that while yes, he must block, and that is a downside, I strongly feel that there's enough answers where it's not going to be that much of a negative where he gets a pass. So again, mono water, I am super excited to see this card go in the direction. And again, the artwork is just, all the Dissidia arcade artwork is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So love this card. It's beautiful. It's absolutely going to be getting a spot in those decks. Again, if it's either mono water or if it's what have you, try this card out. Again, might only be a 2 or 3 of, especially for how much filtering water has. I'd probably only run 2. But this card is definitely going to be worth playing in your decks. Again, I don't know why, and I'm certainly not going to complain when it comes to this card. Water, again, getting things that, okay, so it has Ferry, which also stole from that as well, but that's a summon, so it's not quite the same. We have a backup that has something that's usually a very wind-focused effect, and it's a 2-drop, so we can play it early and not have to worry about it, but pay 2, dull this, choose a 4, and activate it. And again, I want to stress, because this is not something that, is just clear for either a lot of players, it doesn't always become clear. Being able to activate one of your forwards and being able to block one of your opponents is certainly a form of card advantage where they might not expect it. Even more so, if you leave this untapped on your turn and you have cards in hand, let's say you tapped your other backups, what have you, and you have a 9k that's dulled, your opponent is going to think twice about attacking, and chances are, let's add Minwoo into that equation as well, your opponent goes, crap, I can't attack unless I have some kind of combat trick. Now again, maybe your opponent's just going to call your bluff, what have you. That's a whole nother next level discussion that could happen. But this card is absolutely insane for the potential that it brings to, again, an element that normally doesn't have a lot of resources for it. And what I'm really excited about is this is critically important, 1 against ice decks, and 2 in more control-based decks to begin with. So for a common, this is absurd. Now, again, it does cost 2, so that's the one possible downside you could have to this card, but, excuse me, I absolutely love it. And again, the artwork is fantastic, so that is also a consideration for running it as well. Knight is a 3-drop standard unit, 7k. It's a really beefy card for water considering it's usually should be, even as a vanilla card, that's, you know, on par for what it is, but it's a standard unit, so it gets buffed by Warrior Light and potentially becomes a 3-drop 9k with first strike, which is, whew, I might have to put some water on that heat that I got coming on over here. They're like, it is great. Now again, you're going to be heavily focused on this Warrior of Light deck, so I'd have to go back because I know there's Vikings. You can use Mind, you can use Knight. We just talked about a little bit. But I definitely think that there is something here that you can get away with running a mono element deck using the new Leviathan summon, which we'll cover in a minute, the old Warrior of Light from Opus 1, and the, Cecil from this set, to just say, look, all my guys are massive and you just have to deal with this now. And they all have first strike, which is also just really hard for certain decks to deal with, unless you're playing Earth or something and have this way to just pump them up in power. So again, we are going to build a deck, a mono element deck of each, a mono element deck for each element. And I think that the water one will most likely be focused on a standard unit deck featuring Yuna and Len for that combination. So we're going to do a little bit more work with it, but in terms of just making sure that water has enough power behind it, the standard unit Warrior Light build is most certainly the place to look. Viking, when it leaves the field, draw a card, 1-drop 1k. Again, the interesting note here is that when it leaves the field, so if either it goes to your break zone or bounces back to your hand, again, Scholar, Leviathan, what have you, you get to draw a card. So this is something that it gives us options. Now, again, it's just a 1k, so it's not that exciting. I get it. But if there ever becomes a way to, what we call a magic flicker or blink or what have you, this card just multiple times in a turn, and you get to draw a card, absolutely sign me up. So right now, not playable, probably even in the mono element deck. But this is a card that I'm just going to keep an eye on as long as Opus is around. You know, Opus 2, I don't think there's anything. I'll have to go do another look. Maybe an Opus 3, maybe an Opus 4, maybe in the next set, or whatever they change the Opus name to. Unless it's just always going to be Opus, then that's fine too. This is a card to absolutely keep an eye on for those more control-based decks. Because if you tell me that I can just, if I can play this card in, let's say the best scenario ever, we get a backup that says pay 2, or I'll even pay 3. Pay 3. Remove what you forward you control from the game, then put it back into the field at the end of your turn. At least that's the way we can't do it multiple times in a turn. Like, I am all about that card, just to let us get card advantage. Because again, anytime that you're drawing a card in this game, you can also discard it for crystal points, and that is just so powerful. Speaks to how powerful drawing cards and being able to progress your game plan can be. It's essentially ramping in this game is what it really is. Now, a card that I am super stoked about, as you can tell by the thumbnail, Q Lane, I believe is how you pronounce it, the Impure. Again, water not having certain aspects of it previous to this set that is now getting this effect. So, again, it competes with the legendary Yuna, so you're probably not doing it, but we do have a backup Yuna that makes this a 3-drop, which is insane. But choose a forward and opponent controls, it loses 1,000 power. So again, loses power, gets around Minwoo, gets around those kind of effects for each dull character. So forwards and backups they control until end of turn, and you get to draw a card. So immediately you can do things like play a water ice control deck with either the new Squall, you can use Renoa and break her to get the effect, and you can just use this as a kill spell. Obviously Squall is going to be able to help you dull their backups, which is just going to be 3 or 4k, which is going to help you combo this with what you're attacking with, shrink their guy, be able to beat it in combat, and draw a card to replace itself. And it's an EX burst. So yes, it's going to be a bit more limited because generally speaking, the correct play is always going to be don't use any of your resources, attack the first thing in your turn, and then play stuff. So this might only do 1,000 or 2,000 power reduction, but that might just be enough to be able to stop them from attacking, and you still draw a card for free. So I am super excited for this card. And just the potential it has. Now, I might only do it as a 2-of because I want to run Leviathan. Well, a lot of it's going to depend on the deck, sure. But if I'm playing like the new Leviathan or either Leviathan, really, those both help us move in a certain direction. But again, water is finally getting a card that just says you can potentially break a forward your opponent controls and you draw a card. Yep, that's perfectly fine. I think this is just an insane rare that is certainly going to be seeing some play with Opus 2. Then we have Horne. It's a Moogle. draw a card for each drop. Moogle control, then place as many cards drawn from your hand at the bottom of your deck. So this really just should say draw. Yes, I realize how good that would be, but the fact that you're not generating any kind of card advantage, it's card neutral in this case, really bums me out. Like, you have to put a lot of work into this card. Now, that said, if you're playing a heavy dark focused deck where your hand might just be stuck with these dark cards you can't get rid of, then sure, this card becomes fine because it can filter out things for you. But ultimately, I am super underwhelmed by this card, and maybe as we get more Moogles, it'll be fine, because then maybe we'll want to find like Good King Moogle Mog and we just need to find those tech cards. Sure, maybe. But there's nothing in the game currently that is strong enough to say, I'm going to force this Moogle plan because I'm going to put this one tech card in my deck that if I draw it, it's going to win me the game on the spot. There's just nothing in the game currently that's that strong, unless you're, using Bahamut for the win is the only possible thing I could think of. But even then, you're spending so many resources to get to it. So just unfortunately not that excited for this card. Porum. I love this combo, and I certainly think that this is the more playable out of the two, considering. But again, for Pyroblast, you have to have Pelham as well. Now, again, the kind of good thing here is that you can have the 1-drop Pelham and still, Wonder Twin powers activate, if you will. And Water having an effect to deal 8,000 damage to something is very, very, very strong. So it's. And again, you'll see me say, I think it's a trap in the sense that your deck is probably just better off with 8 other cards, assuming you run like a 3-1 or even a 2-2 split, depending. I think you could be doing more for those card slots. Now, that said, I love that based on the next card, you can bounce something at instant speed. So that is going to be, it is 5 or less as a small note there, but that's probably going to be good enough more times than not. But again, it's a 3-drop 6K, so it is a little under power, and it requires another card to really do a lot, and it forces you into fire water. So ultimately, I want this card to be good. I really, really do, but unless we have like a Zemus in play already, and then we can use the small Palm to burn something off and, get all that crazy combos in, it leaves a little bit to be desired, and maybe as more cards come out, there'll be a better way to make this work, but kudos, again, to anyone that can make this deck work, and I'll probably throw some Ultimate Guard swag your way if you can make a Porum and Palm deck do well in a major event as well, just to prove everyone wrong. But if you do, let us know. We'll definitely hook you up with some swag. And then we have Baby Porum. Again, so when Porum or Palom you control is chosen by a summoner ability your opponent controls, you may return it to your hand. So here's the good thing. Like, you can protect the card that you've spent so much resources into getting into the field, and it doesn't just die, so you can more likely get the SFX off or the specials, but it's still, I don't think, good enough. But again, what's important here is that you can pay 2, put it into the break zone, and search for the other Porum, which then lets you bounce a card. So a 1-drop isn't really that exciting, 1-drop 1K, but being able to bounce something at instant speed can certainly help your tempo plan and make sure that you can get through for the last point of damage you need on the next turn. So absolutely has some utility. I'm just not convinced that it's enough, but I guarantee you that I'm going to be trying to force it anyways just to try it out. Yes, Merlib. This is Moogle on a backup, so we saw all the summons, or all the faction leaders from 14 got a summon attached to a backup, and again, for the same reason that we talked about Gis, we have Moogle. It is just so important to stress that Water is getting all these filter options, which make it great candidates for running multiple light and multiple dark cards in a deck, or maybe you just want to run some like crazy 5-color plan. It just helps you push that. And again, it's a EX burst, so if you hit this off damage at any point, you get to draw 2 cards and then discard a card. So I just give me all the free cards in this case. Give me all the filtering options. Let me go through my deck quicker and find that light or dark card I need. So not a lot needs to be said about this. The downside compared to Moogle is that it's not instant speed. But what I do like about this is that it becomes a backup, and then it generates you advantage throughout the rest of that game. So I do like this better than Moogle, and I think I will certainly be playing it in a number of different Water decks. Ah, yes, Yuna. Here we finally go. So, we'll talk about Len in a bit, but she does have to combo to really get the most out of her. But when she attacks, all characters other than light and dark opponent controls lose all abilities until end of turn, so it can shut off your opponent's Minwoo. There's a number of different things that that can do, and that could probably deserve its whole other video. And then the special is Sphere Change. Name one element and one job. Unit becomes the named element and job until end of turn. So, sure, you can make her a Moogle. You can make her a standard unit. Hint, hint, you can make her a standard unit. There's a number of things you can be doing that's just all going to really come down to the different type of deck that you're going to be playing, and ultimately is going to be chosen by that. So I think that Sphere Change, again, it doesn't cost anything other than discarding another copy. And if we're playing a water deck, chances are we have plenty of Unos to toss around. I love this card in terms of what it can potentially do in combination. I don't think this card is strong enough on its own unless we're playing this as an extra attacker in a standard unit deck, because then we can make it a 9k first striker out of nowhere if we really need to. That's always going to be an option, but what it combos with another card, which we'll talk about in a minute, is certainly worth running it. Larsa or Little Minwoo. Forwards you control don't receive damage as less than their power, so Minwoo on a body. Choose one blocking forward, it gains plus 2,000 power till end of turn. So the interesting note here is that you can block and then use the effect. So it's technically a 2-drop 7k blocker that has the Minwoo effect on it, which makes this a pretty damn strong common, really. It gives you another Minwoo, which obviously can be its own benefit, but making one of your blockers bigger by 2k power can just help one of your other guys survive when they have the Minwoo effect already by pumping it by, say, a 9 to 11. So I do like this card. I'll probably end up running it as a 1 or a 2 of. Again, it doesn't have a special, or it can be very lackluster in some situations. But for a common, I find it surprisingly strong, and I definitely think it's going to be seeing a place in a number of different water decks. Probably, let me phrase that. It's going to see play in the control type of decks or water decks that want to go a little bit longer. So I will be playing this in a water, fire, more mid-range type of deck. For the blocking power can just be so strong. Finally, Leviathan. So all water forwards gain plus 2,000 power. So as we know, 2,000 power is absolutely insane for the amount that it's going to increase it, and it's an EX burst. So on attacking, this card is great. It's going to swing the power level in your favor. If you're playing Waka backup, that's 3k. If you have Cecil, that's 4k. So very quickly you can see that water has this chance to, and again, keeping in mind that we're playing all these draw and filter effects, water can set up these turns where it's like, look, I'm just going to bear down, attack with 4k everything, and you just are going to lose stuff in the process. So I am very excited for this card and what it does for mono water, which again, I think might need a little bit more work to where it needs to be. But being able to make Unit and Co, I'll just say, 9Ks with Minwoo backup is so strong. So I am all about this card. I think it's going to be great. Again, it's only going to be going in those maybe more water element decks, mono water element decks, but absolutely a strong card that needs to be considered. So a card not getting a lot of love is Reef. The cost required to play your job standard units forwards on the field is reduced by 1, cannot be 0. So yes, can't be 0. It's understandable. It's a forward. It doesn't have an S. It does have a bit of a drawback, but I do like the idea of being able to play my, well, I guess, Knight and Mime, if you will, for cheaper. And if you remember our budget Warrior of Light Wind Water deck that we featured on the channel a bit ago, this card can set up from some just insane tempo plays where if you saw, I think it was like game 3 of that match where I think I played 4 different cards in turn, past Matt did whatever he was going to do, and then I was able to land an Planet Protector on Aerith that made my entire team not be able to die to EX burst, and I just attacked through and was able to win off of it. And now we're going to be getting, I forget what the name is, but it's the Whisperer, for example, that lets all your guys that can be blocked by cost inferior, can be blocked by cost unless it's inferior or equal to what they are. So the Knights and whatnot are already 1 and 2 drops, so very hard to block. But now we get to say, we get to build this Wind Water deck that's actually very exciting, that we get to play Warrior Light, Reefia, the Whisperer, and Aerith, and we get to flood the field. We get to, attack with Mime early on, get that card advantage. Maybe we're attacking with Chocobo, forming that party for first strike, so our opponent's not going to block it. They're taking a point of damage. And then we get to set up these turns where it's like, all right, I hope you have like Cyclops off the top or something. You know, is like the only out that they're gonna have. You go, Planet Protector, Whisperer, attack you 6 times. You can't do anything about it. Do you hit like double EX burst? Do you get out of this? No. Great, you're just dead. And because we are playing this more low to the ground deck, and we have these, you know, the Moogles and all the extra draw effects, like we can very easily just get to these games where we're just, you know, run 3 Moogle, run 3 Meryl, and then run 3 of even Kuchu Lane if you want to have that as an option just to draw another card, and then just get to draw into all your Mimes, Vikings, Chocobos, whatever, and then just swing out. Like, I think that it is an archetype that's being overlooked. Because it did win some local events. Now, again, I don't think it's going to win an 80-man event out of Japan or anything like that anytime soon. But if you're looking for a budget deck that, you know, can do well at locals and at least win you some promos until you really decide what decks you want to be playing, yeah, like do the Windwater standard unit deck. And this card is just great for what it allows you to do by being able to play them all for one cheaper. So you get to play multiple forts in a turn. And then keeping in mind we got stuff like White Mage, which can activate our backups, let us play even more Chocobos, for example. There's a lot of things that deck can be doing. I'm actually very excited to revisit the Windwater deck and determine what it's going to be doing. And then finally we got 2 Len. Now again, really what this card says, party attack with Yuna, cast Legendary Bahamut for free, use Scholar to bounce this back to your hand. You were able to cast a Bahamut for free, kill their best 2 blockers, save this card, and just really swing the tempo in your favor. So, again, when this attacks the unit, you get to search your deck for any summon, but if it's cost 5 or more, break her after the fact. But again, you can party attack. So I spoke that a little fast, so to reiterate, you party attack, use the trigger, use Scholar in response to bounce her back to your hand, and then the effect still resolves because it doesn't say while she's in play. The effect is already on the stack. You get to play the summon for free. The game looks for the card that is no longer on the field, so it doesn't break. And then again, Yuna still is attacking. She still gets in the points of damage because again, she'll probably be a 7k, which is just good enough. If you Bahamut their 2 best blockers, chances are 7k is still going to get through for damage, or 8k if we have Cecil, or 9k if we have Cecil and Waka, what have you. But very quickly you can see that this deck is going to be focused on finding this pair as quickly as you can, playing the Leviathans, playing the Bahamuts, which if you play a Leviathan, you just get to keep this card and play for free, so they both become 9Ks or 10Ks, and yes, you are party attacking, so the downside there is that instead of what could have been maybe 2 attacks to get 2 points of damage, you're making them attack together just so you can get the effect. Now again, that said, if you have Leviathan on hand already, you probably don't care to party attack with them then, unless they have 2 forwards you gotta get rid of. You can just attack with 9Ks and probably be fine. So this card is all about having Yuna on the field already. It's very important to realize that, I know, but the payoff of this card, and plus they just look beautiful next to each other, the payoff on this card is absolutely insane. And again, we're going to get more summons in Opus 3. We're going to get more summons in Opus 4. We're going to get more summons in Opus 20,000. Like, this is a combination that just only gets better. Now, again, that might be limited by what new cards come out or what have you, but it's an effect that just, it's an auto. So you just say, even if they have like the Emperor or something, you're just like, nope, don't care. I'm going to kill your Emperor. Nice vanilla 8K, idiot. And get it out of the way so then you can use your other specials. So, this is, as someone who is a a control player in other card games, and I play way too many card games, I am so excited to play this more toolbox summon kind of deck that this gives us the opportunity to play. So, yes, again, sign me up. I'll even cast a Moogle for free. I don't care. Like, that is so good. So, yes, I think I've gushed about this card enough. I'm so excited for it. And again, Yuna is just really what makes it, obviously. And then Yuna is just good enough on her own. So, I am so looking forward to this card. And I'm sure the foil is going to look beautiful. That is a pair that I might get a foil of just to have. And then we have Rosa. So, just another card that, man, I love this card. 3-drop backup. So, yes, we had Minwoo, and there's actually a good number of 3-drop backups that we have now. But I think this card is just too good to pass up. When a forward you control is chosen by your opponent's summon, you may draw a card. So, okay, play this card early and just hope to get free card advantage off of it. That's fine. But then it also has Protect. All the forwards you control don't receive damage that's less than the power of this turn. So, let's say you're having trouble finding Minwoo. Maybe you're playing this over, say, Larsa. it gives you more Minwoo based effects in a now element that has Leviathan, Cecil. Maybe you're playing Warrior of Light. Like, you have all these pump effects, and to be able to Minwoo effect out of nowhere, and again for no cost other than just a special. So again, you can run 3 of these and not feel terrible about it, because drawing the extras will probably just be fine. I am really excited for what this card is going to be doing. And again, if your opponent is playing Bahamut, either of the Odins, like there's a number of Shiva if they want to dull and freeze it, unless they like win the turn that game, then I understand. But there's so many things now. Your opponent's like, all right, I might get to interact with your forward, but I'm gonna let you draw a card now. That's very, very strong. So again, a rare that's gonna be very interesting to see how it fits into a lot of decks, but I think it is absolutely worth running as well. Even though the backups are now going to be a little bit limited when you can play it, but I am so looking forward to being able to brew with this card. And then lastly, we have Baby Rosa, which I'm not terribly excited about. It's a forward, it's a 1-drop forward 3K, so on stats. Card named Cecil, you control, gains 1,000 power. Can make him a 10K, I guess. And then choose 1 forward, reduce the next damage dealt to it this turn by 1,000. So again, works into this Minwoo based plan, but I'd rather just be playing the other Rosa. Even with Cecil, it's not good enough to warrant this one over the other one. So that combo's going to be getting a pass. So that is all for this, and then we have the last cards. None of these should be a surprise. Legendary Yuna, because what she does in combination with the other card is absolutely insane. But also Sphere Change, again, I want to stress that is going to be a very relevant effect as well. Our hero card, because we love filtering, the rare, the impure, giving water an effect that it didn't really have, and we get to draw a card. I love drawing cards. Thank you. And then Astrologian, which again is a backup with an effect that we don't really get to see in water a lot. And I will say that these were a lot harder to pick this time around in terms of which ones I like, because I love so many things that water has got this set, and I'm so excited to finally have locals that have cards, and we can all start playing with Opus 2 here in 4 more days. And I think it's just, I am so excited for water and all the different effects that it's getting this set. So if you guys like this video, make sure to drop us a like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. These are absolutely training to get out there, and it's certainly a lot more talking than I like to do, but I know how important it is to kind of hear the opinion and how other people are approaching the game, and that's really why we want to do this. We want to get the discussion out there. We want to hear what you guys are thinking. So again, in the comments down below, let us know what your favorite element is that you're comboing with water this next set. Again, I kind of hinted at it a little bit, but I really do like the idea of fire, water, and water wind, for example. I think both those have a lot of things going for them in this next set. So let us know what you guys think, and make sure to drop us a list if you want to have it potentially featured on the channel as well. We always love to hear what you guys are brewing with. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next 6 Sages Gaming set review. Have a good one.